Hello, thank you for joining today's webinar. Today's webinar is a CyberSense update from Index Engines, giving you updates on the latest news and all sorts of information. My name is Jim McGann. I'll be presenting today. I have our email address in there. If you do have questions, there is a question box or a chat window. You could chat through the session and we'll try to answer them. We're trying to keep this to 30 minutes, so we may not have time. If we don't get to it at the end, we'll contact you directly. Or you can always shoot us an email at info@indexengines.com. For those of you not familiar with Index Engines, we created CyberSense and have been in business since 2004. We are located on the East Coast of the US. We build technology really from the ground up to support large, complex data sets that you would typically find in the enterprise, whether it be email or files, to really support the indexing of that content. The use cases that we commonly see are, data management, migration to the cloud, migration to cheaper storage, for example, data analysis and classification, to classify data to support legal discovery, to support governance. That also includes our CyberSense capabilities in there as well. And then a full-blown data governance solution. What we're seeing in terms of activity in 2020 is really mostly around CyberSense. Most of the budgets that organizations are freeing and spending are around remote working and ransomware and security protection. So that's really where we've seen the success. So CyberSense, the key aspects of what is CyberSense, it is really analytics that scans backup data to check integrity. So the ability to scan a backup image once it's backed up, in the case of the Dell EMC deployment into a cyber recovery vault, it scans it and directly applies over 100 analytics to the data inside the backup image. So we're not checking the integrity of the backup image, we're checking the integrity of the data inside. So consider that a last line of defense, that the data is constantly being looked at and analyzed to see if it's had any corruption or any change due to a cyber attack. That process is automated through machine learning. So the analytics are fed to the machine learning algorithms that's been trained on all the common Trojans and ransomware that exists to give you a deterministic yes or no, the data looks like it's been corrupted due to a cyber attack. It's a pretty straightforward process. Under the covers, the technology and the engineering that was done to do this and automate it has been years in the making. Finally, if customers do have a cyber attack, there are forensic reports to be able to diagnose and quickly recover from the attack. So that is all based on the architecture that we've had for over a decade, which is really a high-speed indexing platform. It's very unique in the market. It's really a competitive advantage. No one else has this. Other backup vendors have incorporated some capabilities inside their product. It's really based on a good enough solution or a compromised solution that says, hey, metadata indexing is enough. We don't believe that's true. We believe that their good enough solution is not good enough. And that based on this architecture to support large data sets, support high-speed indexing, and directly index the backup image without having to rehydrate it, there's a lot of unique aspects to this capability. As I mentioned, our go-to-market is with Dell EMC. It's integrated with their cyber recovery solution. All that work is done. It's available to purchase through Dell. They have packaged t-shirt size deployments that make it easy to configure, which includes the data domain, the software, the firewall, and all the networking infrastructure, as well as CyberSense and the CyberSense servers. The Dell EMC Cyber Recovery product is also resold by a number of their partners, including the IBM Resiliency Services team and a number of global system integrators like Unisys and DXC. And as I mentioned, it's on their price book, so it's available right now immediately to be sold and configured by Dell resellers. And there's a number of tools and sales support tools that we have to support the channel. As I mentioned, part of the unique aspect of what CyberSense does is support direct indexing of backup images. So CyberSense, really, we've engineered access to these formats, including the Dell formats, Networker Avamar, PowerProtect Data Manager, or PPDM, will be supported in the first half of next year. So it's just about there. Veritas Net Backup, IBM Spectrum Protect, and Commvault. So we support all those common backup environments that customers may have to directly index the data, again, without having to rehydrate it, so that the analytics could be applied to the data inside those images. So as far as the Cyber Recovery Vault, there's really three components or three aspects of what CyberSense provides, or added value that CyberSense provides on top of it. As we know, the Cyber Recovery Vault, there's a lot to it, but to simplify what is happening there is it isolates and protects your critical data assets. So whether it be critical databases that are running your SAP applications, or critical files, including contracts, agreements, intellectual property, engineering documents, as well as networking infrastructure, Active Directory and network capabilities that would need to be rebuilt if they were corrupted due to a cyber attack. So you isolate and protect those critical data assets. I'll talk about typical deployments that we're seeing in the field. CyberSense directly scans those images, and the process is fully integrated and fully automated. So it's kind of a set it and forget it environment. If a customer never gets attacked, they'll never have to worry about this. If they do get attacked, they'll have a very simplified recovery process to be able to get business back and running very quickly. So the three components that CyberSense adds on top of cyber recovery is, first is the initial baseline scan. So on day one, when you scan the initial view of the data that's replicated to the isolated vault, CyberSense has 95% level of confidence in seeing data corruption. So that's going to find the obvious stuff, known malware extensions, encrypted content, corrupted files, things like that. And typically with customers, recently we've had 3 different customers that were deployed that we saw suspicious activity that they were not aware of. One customer, it was a bunch of old encrypted files that were there from a previous cyber attack that they had neglected to clean up. So they were unaware of where they existed. CyberSense found all that. Another customer saw a application that was running. It was a security application that was pushing encrypting data and changing files aggressively, which was increasing their backup window, and then pushing it out to the cloud unknowingly. So that it had the suspicious behavior of a cyber attack, but it wasn't. It was really a security software they deployed, but they really were not aware of what was happening, and CyberSense picked that up as well, checking the integrity of the data. So on subsequent scans, so on the next scan, CyberSense really depends on the observations of data, how data changes over time. So it's comparing how a Word document looked like on Tuesday, then Wednesday, then Thursday, or how your Oracle database looked on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's looking at how data changes over time. With those changes or those point-in-time analysis of data, the level of confidence in finding corruption due to a cyber attack goes up to 99.5% confidence. So CyberSense gets smarter with those observations and really understands and compares data from previous observations. And finally, the third aspect of value that it adds to cyber recovery is the forensic reporting. So if and when there is an attack, CyberSense can diagnose and recover the who, what, where, and when of what's happened, and we'll talk about all this. So the workflow is pretty straightforward. Again, it's fully automated, fully integrated. All the integration is done through the cyber recovery. All the connections and the administration is done through cyber recovery. But once the setup is done and the scan jobs are configured, which is a 5-minute process, the scans occur. Again, that's automated. So when data is replicated to the vault, retention lock is applied. The data is locked down, made immutable. Then the data is scanned, and the scan occurs. CyberSense uses, again, over 100 analytics that are generated. These are indicative of a cyber attack. So signs of corruption, so a file that can't be read. File entropy is a key analytic. That's an important one. So entropy is the random disorderness of a file or a page of a database, for example. So it uses an algorithm that looks for that entropy change. Entropy or random disorderness change. So when a file becomes very disordered, that's a sign of encryption. So for example, a Word document could have an entropy score, and the entropy score goes from 0 to 99, 100 or 100. So an entropy score goes to 99, that signifies encryption. So a Word document on Tuesday could have an entropy score of 56, Wednesday 56, Thursday 57, Friday 99. So that Word document became encrypted. That could be normal user behavior. They could have put it in a zip folder. That's fine. But other analytics are things like looking at the file extension. So by reading the header of the file, and these are content-based analytics, which is important. It's looking inside the file. So reading the header of that Word document, does the header match the true file type? So if on Thursday the extension was .doc, and then on Friday it changed to something different that is not a Word document extension, something like .encrypted or .lol, at the same time that the entropy score got to 99, that's where the machine learning would take all those analytics and look at those different pieces of evidence and say, hey, based on what's happening, there's multiple changes to that document. That's indicative of a cyber attack. So the idea is that the machine learning is really going to minimize false positives and false negatives by saying, tell me everything that happened to the file. For example, if that Word document just had an increase in entropy score and nothing else happened to that file, you're not going to get a ransomware alert, because at some point the machine learning would say, hey, some user put that into a zip folder or encrypted that file or protected that file. So normal user behavior, but the machine learning automates the process and kicks out a deterministic, like red light, green light. If it's a green light and saying, hey, all the data looks normal and nothing's changed, that looks like suspicious behavior, then the process repeats over and over. And if your customers are lucky enough not to ever have a cyber attack, that process will repeat. The beauty of that is that you'll know that everything inside the vault is clean and good. The integrity has been checked. That's an important aspect for recovery, because if you do need to recover, you can know the data in the vault have confidence that it's good and it's been scanned. If there is a red light situation, then CyberSense provides a number of reports and capabilities to figure out what happened, and we'll talk more about that. So the recovery process with CyberSense, and we have had customers that have had attacks when they've had a cyber recovery vault and CyberSense deployed and seen the advantage of it. So it does work. It does provide significant advantage. And there's customers that actually deployed a cyber recovery vault without the CyberSense analytics that are now realizing, that have been attacked, that are now realizing they need the analytics to really determine what's going on with their environment. So CyberSense will let you know when this happens. So some of the attacks, and we're seeing some of the cyber criminals getting inside the data center and slowly corrupting data and slowly manipulating data over time. They're taking their time to really create maximum damage. But with CyberSense, when there's a new replication or a new backup of the data, CyberSense will start seeing that suspicious behavior right away. CyberSense will tell you the who, what, where, and when of what's happened. So how much damage was done? Give me a full listing of the corrupt files. Is it 50? Is it 5,000? Is it 50,000 files? What user account and ransomware was used? What backup sets contain the last good version? So if you get attacked, you can go to CyberSense and say, hey, there's a bunch of corrupt data that's out in the primary network. Tell me the last good backup of that data. I can restore it into production, overwrite the corrupt data, and get the business operational right away with that, without having to spend weeks and months. And without CyberSense, a customer is going to need to create a clean room and start finding the last good backups and just restoring it into a clean room, checking if the data is good, if it is not corrupt, and realizing is that the stuff you want to put back into production. And we've seen customers take, weeks and months doing that. So the workflow, post-attack workflow is straightforward. As I mentioned, there's comprehensive indexing that's occurring. Again, content-based indexing, much bigger advantage versus other competitors out there that are doing metadata level indexing that they feel is good enough, that we know for a fact is not good enough. So if you have competitive environments where customers are looking at other products out there, then we can help you explain the advantage of why CyberSense is important and why content-based indexing is important. Again, CyberSense uses over 100 analytics that are generated that are indicative of a cyber attack. So document encryption, document corruption, page of a database encryption, change of file extensions, all sorts of stuff, including even embedding, encryption inside, partial encryption inside a file, which is more difficult to find, especially with metadata only analytics. They won't find that at all. And then the machine learning that's been trained on thousands of Trojans and over 20 attack vectors that are common out there. Now, one of the questions that we get commonly is every time that CyberSense does a scan of the data, do you need to update the machine learning? CyberSense is different from your signature-based tools that need to be updated. So, for example, when you scan your desktop, you need to download the latest signatures to look for those types of malware that exist in your computer. CyberSense is not like that. CyberSense is looking at corruption of files due to a cyber attack. And that behavior or the types of corruption that their cyber criminals are executing has not really changed significantly. So the updating of CyberSense and machine learning, is important to do, but if you don't do it for a number of months, weeks or months, it's not critical. It's not going to really have that much of an impact. So it's not that important, although you should keep the software up to date. The process of updating it is very automated and easy, however. So when CyberSense sees an attack, CyberSense will kick out an attack vector notification. So typically what we've seen is the security professionals or the cybersecurity team in an organization would typically know the type of attack that's occurring. So they know that fairly early on. If they don't, even for smaller organizations that may not have a robust cybersecurity team, CyberSense will tell you, hey, this is the type of attack vector that's being executed on your data. More importantly, CyberSense will give you a full listing of the corrupted files. So if it's 50,000 files that are corrupt, you can see where they're located. If by chance they're all located on the same server, that would give you information to say, hey, we should get that server offline. Maybe they're owned by the same user or the same department or the same types of files, all contracts or all HR documents, for example. So it gives you a significant insight into where the data, what type of data and where it is and what types of files are being attacked. Then you could use that information. CyberSense supports analysis of the event logs. Customers may or may not put that into an isolated vault for analysis. They're large and they change pretty frequently. But you could also use event log analysis tools like a Varonis or other things like that to upload the full file name and path of the files that were corrupted, and then query those event log tools to say, hey, who was the last user that touched these files? If they're all John Doe, that's the breach user account. And then what executable was used to corrupt those 50,000 files? That's actually your malware or your ransomware. So CyberSense wasn't necessarily designed to detect or find the ransomware, but based on the pieces of evidence and what's happened to the data, CyberSense would use that information to say, hey, that's the executable that's corrupting your data. That's your ransomware. So it will find it eventually. And most importantly, this is the most important report, is CyberSense will give you a report of the last good backup sets. So as you know, backup sets could span a number of different days and different backups, obviously backup sets. So those backup sets, what's the list of 10, 20, 50 backup sets that are required that have the last good version of the data that's been corrupted on primary storage? And that's the go-to report. So customers would go to that report and say, hey, give me that report. Let me get it to the backup team, restore those into production, and then you're back and operational right away. And that could include, again, your networking infrastructure, Active Directory, and so on. So why now? Why now is CyberSense important? The attacks are becoming incredibly much more sophisticated out there. Some of the attacks recently that are happening, there's an attack on FireEye, which is a multi-billion-dollar leading edge security company. If they can't keep their data safe, this was going in and stealing software. It wasn't necessarily a ransomware attack, but it shows you that the criminals can break into any data center that they want to. And whether they grab data and grab software or grab files and steal them, or they plant ransomware, they're getting in. Also this past week, the press has covered a big attack in the federal agencies where they've gone and stolen data outside there. Again, both those are to be allegedly by the Russians, have smart people, as do the Ukrainians, as do the Koreans, as do, China and so on. So, it's not if, it's when, and customers, ramping up their security and to protect the perimeter and protecting these criminals from getting inside. I don't think that's going to be the smartest approach anymore because they're getting inside. It's about protecting the data now. The other tactic is that they're exploiting sensitive data on the web. So once they get in and they find sensitive data, so the attack on the federal agencies, they were in there since March of this year. So from March to just this week, they were found. So they're looking for this sensitive data. And when they find the sensitive data, they threaten to publish it out in the web if customers don't pay the ransom. So ransoms used to be, tens of thousands of dollars. Now they're millions and tens of millions of dollars because of this. And also cyber attack as a service is popular. So, even people that aren't, smart or technical can execute a cyber attack. This is disgruntled employees, students, people that are not happy with their hospital. Something happened at their hospital. People that are just not happy with a certain company. They can go call an 800 number and they would execute a cyber attack as a service. They have help desks, they have financing, everything. It's a formal business that's set up. So that's why, if customers aren't scared, they should be, because the attacks are happening all across the board. This is an FBI alert that came out in October. This seems like a lifetime ago, but it's just 2 months ago. Basically saying that healthcare and public health sector organizations are at high risk. If you don't have the document, you can ask us for it. We can send it to you, or just search for this. It's interesting. It goes through the very detail of what they're doing, what type of files they're planting inside, and so on. And there's a lot of detail in this about how sophisticated these attacks are. But if you work with organizations that are in healthcare, they should be concerned, and they're a likely target and need to really ramp up their capabilities. So as I mentioned, this is being sold through Dell as a Dell partnership. It's been a very successful partnership for us over the past few years. If you get a sense of who we're selling to or where the success is, on the left, the chart on the left is showing you the different industries. Really, the top industry is the government, in government sector. And that's across the globe, including the Middle East, including EMEA, including the US, large government agencies, small government agencies, all across the board. Financial is obviously another high success area. Education as well. School systems, especially in the US, have been attacked relentlessly, especially in Texas and Louisiana and California. So they are very interested in CyberSense and really adopting CyberSense. Healthcare is growing. You see there it's 8%. I think if you look at our prospect list, that's probably the largest segment there. But then it's really across the board, technology, manufacturing, transportation, telecommunications. The chart on the right is showing front-end terabytes. So CyberSense is priced on front-end terabytes coming into the vault. A lot of the, people feel that, hey, these analytics and machine learning and sophisticated stuff, really only for large companies that can afford it. If you'll see, on the right side, from 5 to 50 terabytes, which is, a commercial type account, small, medium business type account, 5 terabytes is not a lot. We have school systems that are just scanning 5 terabytes every day. That's more than half of the customers today. On the left side, you see it's the growing list, the growing size, from 100 to 250 and then 250 plus. We do have clients that are, and these are by customer count, but if you did it by terabytes, 250 plus, we have clients that are doing analytics on petabytes of data, tens of petabytes. It's crazy. So it's really, across the board. And one of the things that's, I think, interesting is that, a global financial services firm and a small school system in Texas are using the same advanced technology to help defend themselves against these types of attacks. I'm not going to go into detail on this chart. This is a Dell chart that kind of shows the competitive advantage. If you're selling against Rubrik, Cohesity, Veritas, Veeam, Commvault, it really shows the value of good, better, best. And if you look, I'll get into my highlighter because there's a lot of stuff on here. But if you see, good, better, best, if you see on best, the indexing and machine learning, that's CyberSense, and then the validation of backup sets and integrity. So these two key components of the 6 or so they have on here, 7 they have on here are CyberSense. So they consider it a key advantage and part of the best deployment. It is a competitive advantage. Others don't have this. So I can go into detail on this chart at a later time, getting close to our shutdown time. So I'll move on. We do have a case study. There's a bunch of material we have to support partners in the field. There's a case study of a utility company, fairly decent sized deployment. They were managing or doing analytics on 46 terabytes of data that was backed up using Avamar. The data includes core infrastructure, their Active Directory, networking infrastructure, a bunch of business data, agreements, intellectual property, and key databases that are running their business, DB2 and SQL databases. That was really 5 analysis policies that were running in parallel. 1 virtual backup, which about 62 clients that were processed daily, and then 3 native database backups. So you see it was a very mix of different environments. CyberSense was able to make easy work of all that data. And you can get some of the throughput and speeds and stuff like that on here. But one of the questions that comes up frequently is that, hey, there's a lot of resources that in the vault, the data domain and the servers and the compute and so on. That's going to just be sitting idle after replication. These analysis jobs are running, 10, 15, 20 hours a day. So what it's doing as the data is replicated or after replication is it's doing analysis of the data on a continual basis. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of heavy lifting inside the vault. And all those resources that customers are deploying are busy and are being used to really check the integrity of their data. We have a release, 7.5 release, actually 7.6 is coming out soon, but we add a whole bunch of new enhancements. I'm not going to go into the details of this, but basically to help speed up performance of virtual backups. Most of the deployments are virtual backups that we're seeing. To add new workloads, including SAP HANA database, a JetBlue database on top of the DB2, SharePoint, SQL, and Oracle database support that's already there. And to do some support of the cloud to be able to support analytics, aggregating analytics in the cloud. So a lot more detail there, and I can provide copies of the slides if people are interested. There's also, in terms of material, there's a new ESG technical validation paper that's available. ESG is a third-party consulting firm, and some of their senior analysts went through and installed Cyber Recovery, installed CyberSense, went through the whole data corruption process. So they corrupted the data with ransomware, and then saw how the product worked. And they have detailed analysis of their findings here. Good information, good document, good deliverable to your customers. That's available as well. All this stuff is available in the CyberSense sales kit that we have. If you want to go to indexengines.com/Dell-partner, you can download it directly, or you can send an email to info@indexengines.com and we can get it out to you directly. There's a number of other, beyond the sales kit, there's a number of other pieces of or tools that we provide that help partners to be able to configure and sell CyberSense. There's obviously the collateral that's included in the sales kit. There's a sizing calculator on how much data is in a vault and the makeup of the data, how much databases versus files and so on, to be able to size the number of servers. We typically see, anywhere from 50 terabytes or less in the vault is a single server environment, physical server we're talking here. And then when you start getting above 50, definitely above 100, you can have multiple servers that would be processing the data in parallel. So we can help with the sizing calculator there. That's something that Dell has commercialized and made available. There's a support matrix that's on indexengines.com/CS that's updated regularly that shows what is supported in terms of backups. Every backup has different types of flavors, whether the data is virtual backup or not, and what type of backup agents are being used. That's updated there, so that's a good tool. We provide training as well, joint sales calls, all sorts of stuff to be able to help partners become successful. And we already have dozens of resellers actively selling CyberSense with success. So again, contacts out there, Rob McAlpine. If you haven't spoken to him, he's our partner manager at Index Engines. His email address is there, rob.mcalpine@indexengines. Myself, Jim McGann, I'm there as well to help you. I mean, if you want to reach out to either of us or both of us, you're in good hands, and we'll be able to take you to the next level to be able to help support your customers and their cybersecurity initiatives. Right at 10:30, that's pretty impressive. So we're going to end it here. Any of the questions that came in, we'll get back to you individually. This is being recorded, so if you do have colleagues or partners that you'd like to share this with, just reach out to us and we can get you a link probably later today. Thanks all for your time. Have a great, happy, and safe holiday, and look forward to working with you in the future.